Welcome everybody to Engineering Conversations. Today we have a female engineer with us and I will ask her to introduce herself. Please go ahead.
Hi, so my name is Laura and I'm an Aerospace Design Engineer and I work for a company called BAE Systems. Outside of this, I also do a lot of things with the Royal Aeronautical Society, which is a professional engineering institute. I'm a council member and I also am the chair of their membership services board. I recently stepped down as chair of the Young Persons Committee and I sit on the Continuous Professional Development Committee. So I'm always busy.
Thank you, Laura, for that introduction. Let me dive into today's interview. What inspired you into engineering?
So I didn't know what engineering was when I was younger. My mum wanted me to be a pharmacist. My other relatives didn't actually want me to study. They didn't actually see a point or for a girl to be more educated. They just sort of thought, oh, well, you need to go find a husband. But it was actually my physics and maths teachers, whilst I was doing my A-levels, who suggested that I looked into engineering, and I didn't know what it was, so I did a bit of research, and I ended up joining something called the Engineering Education Scheme, which is run by the EDT. And it allowed me to work on an engineering project for 6 months as like an extracurricular activity at school whilst I'm doing my A-levels. It was something that my physics teacher brought to the school and said, you know, maybe some of the, I went to an all-girls school, so maybe some of the girls would want to do something like this. And there were about 8 of us who ended up going on it, and it was really good. It actually opened my eyes to engineering, and I really enjoyed it. So I suppose the rest is history.
Okay, that sounds really good. Getting teachers encouraging their students to explore engineering. Can you explain to us what your duties are as an aerospace design engineer and how does your day look like?
I suppose that term is it's a very loose term. I mean, engineering is so vast, aerospace engineering is so vast, but I suppose engineering is about problem solving. So when a customer has a problem, they ask us as engineers to help them design a solution. So my background is in actually cockpit design and training systems design, but I now work in program integration, and that's basically understanding technologies and capabilities around the business and elsewhere, bringing these pieces together to make sure that they basically work seamlessly and safely to design a solution for the customer, and actually making sure that whatever we deliver to the customer actually meets what they want, what they need. I'm not actually an expert in all the different technical fields, so one of the things about my role is actually getting to work with other experts and understanding it from their perspective and collaborating with them. So there's a lot of talking and lots of communication aspects to my job.
Okay. What was your route into engineering? This is more in relation to qualifications, skill set. I know you mentioned being on the EDT program. So how did you transition from building your interest there into engineering itself?
So after my A-levels and after being on the engineering education scheme, the EDT also do the uni scheme, the year in industry scheme. And so I decided to take a year out before I went to university. And I worked in civil engineering, a firm called Halcro. And so that was kind of a tester for me to see if I actually really did enjoy engineering or whether I was just it was a nice thing to do for 6 months, but actually that year settled it for me. I did enjoy it. I went on to study systems engineering at Loughborough University, and whilst I was there, BAE Systems actually came to they advertised their summer internship program, and there's quite a few companies that do summer internships, but BAE, I don't know, for one reason or another, actually just really appealed to me. So I applied, and then I got offered an internship. So between my first and second year, I did my summer internship and I worked on the power generation systems for the Typhoon. which was pretty cool. So first ever military jet that I'd like ever worked on, ever seen actually. And then I went back to university, did my second year, and then I took another year out back at BAE Systems, did quite a few. I think I had 4 different placements during my time a year out. Then I went back to university. Then I did finished my bachelor's, got my bachelor's in engineering, and then pursued a postgrad. But in between that, I also did another summer placement. Came back to university, did my postgrad, and then went onto their grad scheme. So in total, I've had 10 different roles within BAE.
Wow. I like the fact that you took time in your degree program to gain that experience, because I feel most people think that once you're in uni, you need to be stuck in the program 3 years continuously. But most universities are actually adaptable. If you want to go out and gain experience, they just stop the schooling bit, you're out, you come back in. So I think that is like really, really good because it also helps you once you get into lessons, you can actually relate what's happening in a lesson to real practice on the ground.
Yeah, precisely that. I found it much easier to go back into university after doing the experience and having that. I kind of gained a bit more focus in a way.
Okay.
And I could see where you could relate what I was learning into like real practical experience. I thought that was really tough within like sort of first year. The basic principles, I was like, oh, this is great, the theory is great, but how do you apply it? And once I started working, you could definitely see it.
Yeah. What would you say through your experiences has been the most challenging part of being an engineer, especially with all the statistics showing that males dominate this industry?
Yeah. So I think I'd like to first address the term male dominated. I don't really like it because I think that by using it, you label the industry as male dominated, and it's quite self-perpetuating. I think you end up quite scaring others off into thinking about career. And I do think that there's still a lot more work to do. I think the industry is getting much better. If you compare it to 10 years ago when I first came in as a summer intern, the biggest challenge then was the fact that there weren't many female toilets. In fact, there was one in the building, just one, and the cleaner used to store their stuff in it. So they had to clean out the toilet so that we could use it. But we don't have that problem anymore. And actually, in fact, I now work in a team where women outnumber men. Yeah, we have 4 women, including myself, to 2 men in the small engineering I work in. So there are obviously challenges, but I think they're in general. I don't think they're necessarily specific to engineering industries. So sometimes it can be quite tough to I suppose be heard, like your voice to be heard in meetings. That's been quite a challenge for me because I can be quite timid in meetings anyway. So yeah, challenges are different wherever you go, but I think that in terms of actual engineering industries, the challenges are very similar to society in general.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think overall, it's just bringing more of an awareness, just so people are aware, and for me personally, so that if any young girl is thinking of getting into the industry, they are not surprised like what you found out 10 years ago. They know that, okay, this is a possibility, it can happen, but it shouldn't phase me away. So it's just bringing awareness of some of the issues. But I do believe that in a few years, it'll be quite a normal, I don't want to say like a normal industry, it is a normal industry. I feel like in a few years, everything should just be like the way society is. It shouldn't, no one should get scared thinking of engineering. There should be toilets in workplaces. There should be toilets in workplaces because there are different genders in there. So that is, I hope that is what the future looks like.
And I guess um, related to that, I guess the most challenging part then for me being an engineer is actually breaking down those stereotypes. So what do engineers do and the perceptions of engineering? So it's not all about like being on the manufacturing floor, for example, or being sort of like a mechanical or a mechanic type of role. You don't always have to get your hands dirty. There are roles that do that, but there are roles that don't. I wear false nails and high heels, and there's no way you're getting me my hands dirty on an airplane. I'll tell you that much.
It's good you're saying that, because people need to be aware that, okay, you can get your hands dirty, and there are some roles in engineering that you probably are not going to have to do that too as well. I know you've gone into this a bit, but do you have interaction with other engineers as well as non-engineers in your daily work?
Yeah, so I've spoken a little bit about the interaction and collaboration I have with other engineers. Because I work essentially on a campaign team, it means that actually I do get a lot of regular interaction and exposure to other functions. So procurement, for example, who help with like finding our suppliers for certain things. For the commercial aspects, project management, finance, legal, and HR. So within the campaign team that I work in, there's actually not just engineering. I have an opportunity to work with other functions and learn what they do as well, and it's all really interesting stuff. And I believe that to be a well-rounded engineer, having that awareness and insight into the other functions that make engineering happen is key.
Okay. So I think just a willingness to also learn outside of engineering will help you as well. What advice would you give to another female who wants to pursue a career in engineering and maybe aerospace engineering?
I guess for anyone, it's being just don't be afraid to talk to people. Don't be afraid to approach them. Ask them the awkward questions. You'll find that a lot of people, if not anyone that you approach, are willing to help. So if you ask them questions about their careers or what they actually do, people will talk to you about them. And because engineering is great, so if you meet the engineers, they all have a passion for what they do, and you talk to them, and they can talk for hours about what they do. But it's also really good to get a sense of all the options available to you. So when I was younger, again, I didn't know what engineering was, but I thought the only route in was to do engineering at university. And that's not the case. There's many people I work with as engineers who didn't go to university. They did apprenticeships. Some of them did go to university but didn't study engineering. And it's just about creating sort of like that diverse mindset and all the capabilities and knowledge that they bring in. So look to all the options available to you, decide which is the best one. Don't try and follow the same path as someone else as well, because their path may not be the right one for you. So you have to think about trying to forge your own path, and actually in your own time. It's great to have goals, but you also have to be quite realistic with them, and also not to be disheartened when things don't always go the way you wanted it to. I think are my sort of key bits of advice.
I like that, because sometimes when we see someone's story, we feel like we need to follow that footstep, but everybody's story is so unique, and it's that uniqueness that makes all of us. So what do you see into the future of engineering when it comes to technology and sustainability?
So I think in the near term, with regard to things like training design, the use of like augmented reality and virtual reality is becoming much more prominent. It's already happening, but I see it happening on such a much wider scale. I think that to be able to meet the sort of like criteria for things like sustainability in terms of emissions, for example, so for flying training, you don't want to have the aeroplanes in the air all the time because you're just burning fuel. It's going to be expensive. You're going to have to sort of maintain and fix the planes when they come down as well. So there's a lot of added like unsustainable things that happen when you put planes up in the air. Obviously you will need to, because you can't fly your plane without learning in a plane, but virtual reality and technology is gotten so much better that I don't know if you've ever been in a simulator. There's some amazing like flight simulators that have all the motion and everything as well. It makes you feel a little bit sick sometimes if like I'm watching a pilot in the sim and they are flying around and I'm watching and I'm getting dizzy because my feet are on the floor and I know that I'm on flat ground, but at the same time like I'm watching them fly. It's so realistic that we can bring that sort of technology into training. And then I suppose with regards to things like actually developing new jets and things, we already collaborate with there's what we call the Tempest program. So we're starting to phase out the older aircraft, and then we're going to bring new ones in, and they will come with them the challenges of the new technologies and trying to integrate those as well. So it'll be a very interesting time.
Okay, we look forward to seeing those new jets. What's your favorite as well as your least favorite part of your job?
I'll start with my least favorite because there's one in particular, and it is document writing. So as much fun as I have in engineering, we also have to document it. We have to be safe, we have to have that traceability. If things should happen, at least we have a record of things, but also we have to be able to document our processes and policies and stuff like that. And that's a boring part of my job. I don't like doing that. And I try and put it off as much as I can, but I have to do it. My favorite parts, there's so many aspects of engineering that I love, and things like talking to other people, collaborating, get to travel as well, so get to see new places, work with colleagues from different cultures. I'm very people focused in a way. I know I said I was timid in meetings, but socially I enjoy meeting new people. But there's also the fact that your ideas, being able to think outside the box and be creative, and then to be able to develop something and see it through, it's such a nice feeling to have that happen. So yeah, many things are great about engineering. Only one thing I can find that's not so great.
I know you said document writing, but I think when I was in engineering school, I remember one of the things my lecturers used to say to me is that you can design, you can be creative, but at the end of the day, you still need to, one of the communication skills is writing it out and putting the information out there. And I remember most of my colleagues and myself like, oh, we just want to do the calculation, those technical bits. Can someone do the writing for us? He was like, no, this is why you're doing technical writing. And I'm like, okay. So I can, and now in the era that we are in, 2020, documentation is quite big, just so that we can always go back and learn, as well as also repeat some of the things that we are doing. So this brings us to the last question. I call it the fun question to engineers. What do you do outside of engineering that most people would be surprised to find out?
So I play a sport called roller derby, and if you've never heard of it, you should Google it. It's really fun. So you're on skates, like quad skates, not rollerblades, and you're kitted up. So I have to wear like a helmet. I have a mouth guard, elbow pads, knee pads, and it's a full contact sport. So contact like rugby contact. And the whole point of it is basically, so you skate round a track,
Yeah.
and you have to get past, or you help your teammate get past the other team. So essentially, just knock them off track. So yeah, I've been really quite crude about my explanation of roller derby, but it's always better to watch it to understand what it is, because it's chaotic, but it's fantastic. But obviously there's lots of like rules and things. I work in engineering, you have to make things safe. There's lots of policies and processes. In roller derby, there's a lot of rules to make sure that you're safe as well. So it's not just a free for all, and you can't bash people, like, you can't like kick them and things like that.
That is one of the fun things you do outside of engineering. I am definitely going to Google that to see what happens on the track. I'm definitely going to do that. So Laura, thank you so much for sharing your experiences as from when you were in high school, which is I think when your engineering career almost started, till now. It's been lovely talking to you, and we want to say a big thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.